I still remember that Sunday morning in church when my world started falling apart. My phone kept buzzing with her calls, each one feeling like another crack in my heart. I sat there in the pew, trying to hold back tears while other families around me smiled and prayed together. If only they knew what was happening to my perfect little family. Just a week before, everything seemed fine on the surface. We had a beautiful 8-year-old daughter, a house we built together over the past decade, and what I thought was a happy marriage. Sure, I've been struggling with depression for a while, and maybe I wasn't the most attentive husband during those dark days. But I was trying, going to therapy, working on myself, doing everything I could to be better for my family. Then I found those messages on her phone. At first, my wife denied everything. When I confronted her about the text, she looked me straight in the eyes and said there was nothing going on. But the evidence was right there. Countless messages, secret meetings, all the signs of an affair that I'd been too blind or maybe too trusting to see. When she finally broke down and admitted the truth, it felt like someone had ripped my heart out. She cried, promised it was over, swore she'd end things with him and work on our marriage. I wanted to believe her so badly. After 10 years together, after building a life and raising our daughter, I thought we could fix anything. But just a few weeks later, my gut told me something wasn't right. I hated myself for doing it, but I checked her phone again. And there it was. She was still seeing him. The conversations hadn't stopped at all. I packed my bags that night, ready to walk out and never look back. But when I confronted her, something happened that I still question today. She completely fell apart, crying, getting physically sick, begging me not to leave. And there I was, watching the mother of my child break down, and all I could think about was our daughter sleeping peacefully in her room, unaware that her whole world was about to change. I wish I could say I stayed strong, that I walked away angry instead of letting my heart soften at the sight of her tears. But I didn't. Instead, I made what I thought was the mature choice. I decided to forgive her for our daughter's sake. Our little girl deserved to grow up in a happy home with both her parents. At least, that's what I told myself as I unpacked my bags and tried to push down all the anger and hurt. We started working on our marriage again. Going to counseling, having long talks late into the night, trying to rebuild what was broken. Things seemed to be getting better, even though trust was like a delicate thread between us now. Then I found out she'd been talking to her old boyfriend, and everything spiraled into another round of fights and tears. But somehow we pulled through that too. We promised each other a fresh start, a chance to fall in love again. Looking back now, I realized that was just the beginning of my story. I had no idea what was waiting for me when I came home early from that business trip. I remember how excited I was coming home early from that business trip. Funny how life changes in moments you least expect. I thought I'd surprise my wife and daughter, maybe take them out for dinner to make up for being away. Instead, I got the surprise of my life. The house was dead quiet when I walked in. That silence, I'll never forget how heavy it felt. I called out for them, but nobody answered. Each step up those stairs felt like I was walking towards something I didn't want to find, but couldn't avoid. Then I opened our bedroom door. You know those moments in movies where everything seems to move in slow motion? That's exactly how it felt. There was my wife in our bed with another man. The worst part wasn't even what I saw. It was the look in her eyes when she noticed me. It wasn't just surprise. There was something else there, like she'd been caught but wasn't entirely sorry about it. I stood there frozen. The other guy grabbed his clothes and rushed past me. I didn't even look at him. I just kept staring at my wife, waiting for her to say something, anything that would make this make sense. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Sorry. Such a small word for such a huge betrayal. When I asked her what happened, the truth came pouring out like a flood. She'd never really ended things with her ex-lover. All those promises, all those tears, all those nights we spent trying to fix our marriage, it had all been a lie. She'd been seeing him the whole time, right under my nose. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I just turned around and walked out, got in my car and drove. I had no destination in mind. I just needed to get away. Hours passed as I drove through the night, my mind replaying every moment of our marriage, wondering if any of it had been real. Finally, I pulled over somewhere on the side of a dark road. I got out and just stood there, staring at nothing. The stars were out, and I remember thinking how strange it was that the world could look so peaceful when my life was falling apart. I stayed away from home for a month after that, crashed at a cheap motel, drank too much, barely ate. Every day, My phone would light up with her calls, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. The thought of hearing her voice was too much to handle. During those lonely nights, I kept thinking about our daughter, about all the good times we'd had as a family. Even with all the pain and betrayal, those memories felt real. They felt important. The drinking didn't help. Neither did staying away. If anything, being alone just made everything worse. I'd visit places we used to go as a family, but that only twisted the knife deeper. Everything reminded me of them. Every restaurant, every park bench, every street corner held some memory of happier times. But you know what's crazy? Even in the middle of all that pain, I couldn't stop loving them. My wife had betrayed me in the worst possible way, but she was still the mother of my child, still the woman I'd shared a decade of my life with. And my daughter, God, my daughter. Missing her was the worst part of being away. One morning, after another sleepless night, I made a decision. I needed to go home. Not because I'd forgotten or forgiven what happened, but because running away wasn't solving anything. I needed to face this head-on, whatever that meant. The drive home felt like it took forever. When I finally pulled into our driveway, my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Opening that front door again was one of the hardest things I've ever done. When I walked through that door, my wife was standing there. Neither of us said a word at first. The silence between us held years of love, months of lies, and a pain so deep I wasn't sure we'd ever get past it. She looked like she wanted to say something, probably another apology, but no words came out. Instead of speaking, I just pulled her into my arms and held her. Sometimes actions say more than words ever could. We stood there for what felt like hours, both of us crying, both of us broken in our own ways. That wasn't the end of our problems, not by a long shot, but it was a beginning. A new beginning, maybe. Life went on. We went to counseling, had long, painful talks about everything that happened. Some days were better than others. Some days I couldn't even look at her without feeling that stab of betrayal all over again. But we kept trying, kept working at it, mostly for our daughter, but also for ourselves. Then winter came, and I had to leave for another business trip. 3 months away from home, the longest I'd ever been gone. The whole time I was away, there was this nagging fear in the back of my mind. What would I find when I got back? Would history repeat itself? I came home late one night, and the house was dark and quiet. For a moment, all those old fears came rushing back. My heart started racing as I climbed the stairs, remembering that other night that had changed everything. But when I opened our bedroom door this time, what I saw brought tears to my eyes. My wife and daughter were curled up together on our bed, both sound asleep. The soft glow from my daughter's nightlight made everything look peaceful, almost magical. They must have fallen asleep reading bedtime stories. There was still a book lying open between them. Standing there in the doorway, watching them sleep, I realized something important. Trust isn't something that just happens. It's a choice you make every day. And forgiveness? That's not a one-time thing either. It's a journey, and sometimes it's the hardest journey you'll ever take. I'm not going to lie and say everything's perfect now. We still have our rough patches. There are still days when the past catches up with us, when the old doubts and fears creep back in. But we're working through it together. Our daughter is growing up fast, and she's still the sweetest, most well-behaved kid you could imagine. Sometimes I look at her and wonder if we made the right choice staying together, trying to work things out. But then I see her smile or hear her laugh or watch her sleeping peacefully like that night, and I know in my heart that we did. People ask me sometimes how I could forgive such a huge betrayal. The truth is, I'm still forgiving it every single day. It's not about forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It's about choosing to build something new from the ashes of what was broken. They say time heals all wounds. I don't know if that's true, but I do know this: love isn't just about the good times. It's about what you do when everything falls apart. It's about the choice you make when it would be easier to walk away. I chose to stay. I chose to fight for my family. And even with all the pain and heartbreak, even knowing everything I know now, I'd make the same choice again. Because sometimes the hardest path is also the right one. Sometimes broken things, when they heal, become stronger at the broken places. We're still writing our story, my wife and I. It's not the fairy tale I thought it would be when we first got married, but it's ours. And maybe that's enough.